Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynne Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. I just want to give a shout out to Rounded, our sponsor, because I know for me, my quarterly BAS used to be so stressful. But I love Rounded because everything is there and so tidy, Rach.
I know, no more shoe boxes of receipts. I also really love that my accountant can log into the program remotely and help me with lodgement. Just do it without me needing to even worry about it.
That's what we love.
But best of all, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan. Even if you've got the Rounded discount last year, you can get it this year as well.
Awesome. The show notes always have the details.
Yeah.
Hey, Rachel. Always good to see your cheerful face. It's nice. So I've had a couple of big deadlines this week, but I just sent off a big article and I'm feeling very excited. There's no feeling quite like it, really.
It's a nice feeling.
It is. What about you? What are you working on?
I just did some meta ads for a client, for a retainer client, which is quite interesting. Just trying to think in a different way, but also bring in the things that have gotten great metrics across other sides of the business. You have to try and pull them in. So that was interesting. Yeah, I'm working on a lot of different things at the moment. My brain is firing at the moment. Everybody's winding down and I feel like I'm really firing. It's weird.
Oh, good. Nice to know.
Yes.
But we have one of Rachel's List Gold members on today. And also she's a bit of a friend of ours because she lives not far from us in Sydney's inner west, and it's lovely.
Yes.
So it's Rosalyn Page, and she's going to talk all about her being freelance B2B tech writer. I'm really keen to hear her tips. Shall I do the intro?
Yes, let's get started.
So Rosalyn Page is an award-winning journalist, content writer and strategist, specialising in business technology and digital lifestyle. She's been writing about technology since the Y2K bug, has worked as a journalist on CMO magazine, Choice and corporate IT. She's worked freelance for almost 5 years, including a stint in the UK, writing for publications including Which, Raconteur, Reports in the Times, Information Age, CSO online.com, which I don't know any of these, Industry Dive, and In the Black. Her content work includes thought leadership articles, white papers, reports, and case studies. And she also conducts training sessions for agencies, marketers, and executives on thought leadership creation, content strategy, and ideation. Oh my goodness. Welcome, Roz.
Welcome.
Hi, great to be with you today.
It's such a great portfolio. I don't even know half those titles. So that's really exciting and interesting.
Very different from what we do, isn't it? Although I do dabble in a little bit of tech, but yeah, you've gone really down that road, Roz.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Tell us about where you started and how you transitioned into tech writing.
Yeah, well, once I finished uni, I needed to get a job.
Yeah, we can relate.
As you do.
And I'd worked on quite a lot of uni publications. And I started as a sub-editor, actually, on a technology magazine at ACP, which is a big magazine house in Sydney now called R Media. And I worked there for quite a while on the one of their corporate technology magazines.
They used to have quite a few good computer magazines back in the day, didn't they?
They did. They did. We were our little group called Tech Pubs. So
yes.
One by one, they fell by the wayside a bit. But I took a detour into travel magazines, but I sort of then started writing about travel and tech. And then I worked as a consumer technology journalist for about a decade at Choice. And then I worked at CMO magazine writing about marketing and a lot of marketing tech. And then I went freelance sort of somewhere in the midst of the end of the pandemic. It's all a bit of a blur.
Yes. Yeah.
And are you really technical? Like, are you a very early adopter of tech yourself or not really?
I think my years at Choice made me somewhat, have a somewhat sort of considered view of technology. So unfortunately, I've bored my teenagers by telling them all of the evils of social media and how they're giving away all their data by using certain browsers and certain products and so on.
Yeah, I think, well, I used to be an early adopter, but there is something of waiting just that little bit to make sure all the bugs are gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, tell us about how you find your work. I know you were on a panel last year at the summit and you talked a lot about agencies, and that was really fascinating to me. You kind of explained how to find agency work in a way that a lot of people hadn't really considered before. So is that still how you're finding a lot of your work, or is it a mixture?
So what I did when I first went freelance a few years ago is I'd been working on a spreadsheet and then creating contacts, because prior to that, when I'd been freelance in the UK, it had been a real struggle because I didn't obviously know anyone and I didn't really know what I was doing because I'd come out of a 10 odd year staff job. And so I was quite lost and trying to figure out who am I and what do I do and how do I pitch and all of that kind of thing. And so after coming back to Sydney, having a staff job and going back to freelance, I was like, I've got to do this differently. And so I just started reading a lot more about how to think about yourself as a freelancer. And I just didn't want to step off the cliff and kind of feel like there'd be nothing there. So so I started with a spreadsheet. I guess I was fortunate because I was writing about marketing. So I was just coming into contact with a lot of different agencies and people who worked either in PR or advertising or MarTech or something in that space. And so when I went freelance, I sort of, did a bit of a big kind of email out saying, I'm now freelance and this is what I'm covering. That was one element of it. And then obviously I went to somewhere like LinkedIn and put it on LinkedIn. And then I let my other contact groups know. Some of them are sort of tech writers and some of them are freelance groups like Rachel's List. A lot of work rolled in from that. But as is the way with freelancing, it changes year to year. And sort of for 1 year, you're like, oh, I was all about these agencies. And then their client mix changes and then, or they have on-staff people and they don't need you. So for a while, I did reach out sort of to agencies and content marketing people as you do with LOIs through LinkedIn. And I found also that lots of different clients came to me. So they'd either see my profile on LinkedIn and or find my website and they'd think, okay, I need a tech writer for something. Some agencies came that way as well, because the agency people are often looking on LinkedIn as well. And, they take on board a client, someone gets Slack, for example, and they're like, okay, I need a B2B tech writer or I need a SaaS writer or something like that. And they just mightn't have that person on their books. So they'll go to LinkedIn as well. So I've had agency work come to me through LinkedIn as well. And then sometimes they just come directly. They find me, they look at my website and they're like, yep, she's got that sort of background. And so they reach out directly.
I know that what you said about agency work changing from year to year, that's definitely something I've seen happen this year. An agency that might have thrown you a batch of work every month just goes dead. And yeah, is that something you're seeing in tech or not as much?
Yeah, definitely. My agency work's changed. I could say now that the agencies I worked for in that first year and the second year, I'm not writing for them anymore. And they might be a different mix. And it sort of depends. Like sometimes an agency will get certain conferences and events that, like an ad week thing or something like that. And then they need lots of people who know a little bit about advertising and they want those people in to help create those reports from those events. But then if they don't have that event anymore, they may not need them. So yeah, I've got sort of right at this minute, I've got less agency work than I used to have. I've probably got more direct client work. And I should also mention, because I still do editorial work, I've got those two different things. So it's almost like when one's up, one's down and, and vice versa. So that sort of, it gives me a nice spread as well.
It is good to have a bit of a mix. It sort of mitigates the risk across different areas, doesn't it?
I think so.
Yeah, that it does, because I mean the last two staff jobs I've had have both basically gone because those magazines have closed down, and so it does feel like, in a funny kind of way, it's actually more secure being freelance, because I've got a spread of different people. As long as you keep that, I guess you can fall into a trap where you're like comfortable as it is and you're busy and you kind of can't see past the next month. Things can change in a month and suddenly, that income stream falls away. So that's the constant thing that you're trying to remind yourself to be always thinking about that marketing and that diversification.
It's true. I do feel more secure though as freelance, which is really interesting because I know
it's the
some people
opposite of what
don't.
we were told, but you're right.
Yeah.
It is actually more secure.
Yeah, especially now.
Yeah. So what are the pros and cons of working with agencies, do you think?
Yeah, look, I think there are some good pros and cons. I think on the pros side, if you can get a good working relationship with an agency person, it's a bit like having a colleague. You get to know them, they get to know you, you know what they want, they know what you can deliver, and you can be invaluable to them, especially if they've got this client on their roster and they know, okay, over the next 6 or 12 months, these guys are going to produce, a mini book, of this and of that. And it's that sort of familiarity that sometimes you're missing a bit in freelance. If every time you start anew with somebody or you just do a single job, you've got to go through that, that sort of climb that mountain a bit of sort of familiarity. You're sort of hands off from the client, so you don't have to worry about interacting with the client. You don't have to sort of worry too much about what their response is going to be to things. And yeah, if you're reliable and you're good at what you do and you're pleasant to work with and flexible, you can get, quite a lot of work.
Yeah, that is nice, isn't it?
So you mentioned just earlier that, sometimes you can have a good mix of clients and then other times you've got to be marketing. Well, I suppose we always have to be marketing. What does that look like for you? Like if you are kind of in hustle mode, how do you do it these days?
Yeah, I open up my spreadsheet and then I wrap myself over
You
the
still got
knuckles
the
when I look at the
spreadsheet.
You
date.
still got that spreadsheet on
That's
the go.
awesome. That's
It's
awesome.
a new tab.
Yeah.
But I beat
Love
myself
it.
up when I look at the dates the last time I followed up with people. I'm like, oh dear. But then I read a blog post from somewhere who said, they will say, don't worry about it. You just follow up when you follow up.
Yeah.
And I might do a batch of follow-ups, that usual sort of, hi, how you going? It's been a while. I've got some capacity, trying to walk that fine line between not sounding desperate and just indicating you've got availability and just trying not to overthink it as well, because people are busy and they're honestly not overthinking it themselves, going, oh, she must be out of work or desperate or any of those things. It's just a quick thing that you can fire off. I might go and research some companies on LinkedIn and do that kind of search on either content marketing manager or marketing manager, possibly a CMO, but they are usually a bit too high up to be sort of dealing directly with freelancers. And I might also look at those newsletters that you can subscribe to that have weekly opportunities, because there's often call outs or tech writers in those as well.
I have to say, I'd be a bit worried about writing about tech issues because I feel like it's always changing and you've got to be up to date. Do you need to be an expert, or is it your role really about translating that into sort of English?
Look, I think it depends on what area of tech you enter into. Like, I don't write about like CPUs and chips and etc. There's a whole sort of subset of people who do that, and that's obviously not me. When I did consumer tech, a lot of it was usability, which is like trying things out and just assessing, stepping through it as a user would. And that's what we do, is we make critical assessments of things. It would also be looking at things like their policies and instructions and things, and does this explain it? Are they taking too much of my personal data? That kind of thing. When it comes to enterprise technology, again, it depends. Like, I veered into some things that are probably a little bit too technical, and I'll sort of veer out of that because it's like, yeah, it's just too difficult for me to conceptualize in my head in order to write about it. But if it's things where, again, you're talking about business transformation or you're talking about leadership or you're talking about approaches to that, you don't have to be that sort of deeply technical person. But I guess you've got to have a willingness to engage to a certain extent with that. And just a sort of a general curiosity, which I think a lot of us writers, we have. That's why we're generalists, and we're curious because we're like, oh, what's all that about?
Yeah.
I know what's really interesting about tech to me is, well, that obviously there are so many streams you can go down and so many pathways in tech. But Jennifer Goforth Gregory, who's been on the podcast and was one of our summit keynotes last year and has a fantastic book called The Freelance Content Marketing Writer, I think. she talks about tech as being, the most lucrative part of most niches. If you look for, the tech pathways within that niche, whether it's education or hospitality or whatever, what have you. And I know, like with Engaged Media, I've often written about tech for dentists or tech for vets or something like that, some piece of tech that is revolutionizing, dental businesses or something like that. So is that a really clever way to get more work, to kind of think laterally and how you can look at the tech streams within a niche?
Yeah, I liked when she said that, it's almost thinking about adding that extra string to your bow, and the string is tech. And it's like everybody, everywhere is using tech somehow, whether it's online, web-based thing, an app, what their network systems are, et cetera, et cetera. And so you could sit down and brainstorm and kind of think about, okay, if it's X profession or X field, where's all the tech in that? And then who are the companies that are supplying that? And it's sort of like, opening a little door and you'll uncover all of this, this hopefully a wealth of opportunities. And I'd probably agree with her that in that space, it's probably harder for organizations to sort of drive down the costs, or drive down the fee that they're paying people, because they do need someone who's got an ability to translate some of that into engaging copy for either their business users or their sort of consumers.
Yeah, it's interesting, because we were talking just before we started about you've just returned from a big tech conference, and it was in LA, wasn't it?
It was in the wonderful place of Las Vegas.
Oh, Las Vegas. That's where all the big conferences are, aren't they? So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about how that came about and what you take from that. It was a really interesting story.
Yeah, I've been fortunate the last couple of years. I've had the opportunity. I've been invited to go to a couple of events. These are all cybersecurity, because I write about cybersecurity. And funnily enough, the on-staff journalists, they're not able to attend because they just couldn't spare the time out of the office, or they're restricted from doing that. So funnily enough, being freelance, I'm able to take those opportunities. Sometimes they'll have, if it's a big technology vendor, they might have their own conference and they have things to launch. And so I'll go in and ask if what's coming up, what's the launch is, and is there some kind of news story that comes out of that, and then offer that to the couple of places that I write about for cybersecurity. Sometimes it's that, sometimes there isn't anything particular. And I'm able to go along and just sort of attend as any of the attendees. So I'll go to the keynotes, I'll go to some of the sessions. I usually have an opportunity to interview some of the keynote people, and then just interact with attendees. And usually the keynotes are pretty interesting. Like the one I've just been to, they had the guy who used to be the chief security officer for Facebook.
Oh, wow.
So he had some really interesting things to say about just the general state of security. But it's not that sort of like, your eyes are rolling in the back of your head sort of thing. This is about digital platforms and all of that kind of thing. And there was another woman who used to write about cybersecurity for the New York Times, and she's now working for an investment firm. And she gave a great keynote as well, just sort of about the state of the sort of security issues of the world. So sometimes sessions give me actual story ideas, where I'll go to something and I'll think, I can see this as a story idea, and I might then be able to approach those people as interviewees. I also am looking out to meet people that I can use in stories to interview, because that's the thing, as we all know, so much of what we do relies upon finding people. So we're sort of always on the search for experienced people that we can interact with. So it's a good opportunity to sort of meet those people and just be exposed to all sorts of different things. I'm trying my best to sort of capture it all and then put it into my ideas spreadsheet and then use it so I can sort of refer to it. And sometimes I do. I will pitch ideas off them for feature stories that I just might not have, I just wouldn't have come up with sort of on my own.
So interesting. From what you're talking about, like with the content and stuff, is a lot of it long form content, or does it vary?
I tend to do more long form.
You mentioned thought leadership, so they're usually long form bits, aren't they?
Yeah, that's right. So I've done thought leadership, which is obviously that sort of op-ed type thing where you've got various different people in leadership who want to put something out there, but they just simply don't have the time. And because in my last job, as a staff journo, I received a lot of those pictures. So I sort of had the ability to see those pictures come in, to see what were good ones and what was wide of the mark. So I could sort of take that experience as well as just that kind of journalist hat you wear where you're always thinking about what's the hook and what's interesting, and combine that in a way to help people craft their own thought leadership. And then outside of that, it's sort of blogs and articles, white papers, and almost anything really.
I'm finding as well that I'm being asked to do a lot more email marketing. I'm not really surprised about that, and website copy as well. Are you getting requests for that sort of thing, like particularly the emails?
Yeah, I just got signed off on a package for a Australian-based tech outfit, and they wanted a white paper off some of their survey results and then something for their website. And then I suggested that we do a LinkedIn article as well. And then they wanted something for their EDMs as well. So we'll do a cut down version. So there's a little bit of that. And I've done little video scripts. I've done email sequences. I've done sales decks. I mean, it's nice as the writer because I think, you can earn a better amount of money because you can package it all up. And there's sort of some economies of scale a bit, isn't there? Because you're coming to terms with the subject matter for the paper, and then you can write these other things. And then for them, they don't have to use an agency, which would cost them probably 3 times what I might charge. And they can get a whole package of things that they can then use in different ways. I'll even
slice and dice.
Yeah, and like we do that. Like that's just what we do. Like we just that's just so innate to us, but it's not necessarily to them. I'll do the posts, the LinkedIn posts as well, that sort of social copy that'll link in, and it's really something quite valuable for them.
It sounds like you're good at upselling, like, oh, well, I can do the white paper, but then I could also do a blog post and a LinkedIn and maybe an email sequence.
I wish I was as good as Ed Gandier at upselling.
He's very good.
Productivizing things. It's, they're all restricted by their budget in a lot of ways as well. So,
Yeah. How would you quote something like that? Would you itemize it each thing, or would you just do a big project fee for the package?
Yeah, I do a project fee for the package. And again, I have to sort of take that editorial hat off and kind of crush it while I'm doing the quote, and then try to put the business hat on and think anything with 3 zeros at the end, they don't take you seriously. But I will have that sort of, my mental ready reckoner, but of what amount of hours I think it will take. But I mean, obviously I need to know, and I will say, 2-page report, very different to a 10-page report. So we need to, have the parameters set for that, a rough idea of the word length for the article, something that's sub 1,000 words, an EDM. I've sort of got generally, but I mean, it could all go pear-shaped as well. People tend to tell you it's easier than what it is. And I've fallen for that on too many occasions. Like, oh, it's just a blah, blah, blah. And you're like, okay.
But is it?
Yeah.
I think it's interesting with things like white papers and the sort of work you're doing. There's a lot of research. So I guess the deliverables are less than actually getting an understanding and the hook of the subject. After that, it's not hard to sort of push it out in different mediums. Is that true?
And you do, I guess that's the conversation, is trying to explain to them the research, and again, I think because this is what we do, or maybe it's just me, I think there's a tendency to probably minimize it a bit. It's like, oh, there's the research and whatever, but it's like, well, no, I need to convey to them, what does research look like? It could be 10 hours or maybe even 20 hours.
Yeah.
There might be some subject matter interviews as well. I always ask to talk to someone from the company, because obviously, even if I don't include it, the more I can understand, obviously, the better, and the more confident I feel in what I'm writing.
I can see that packaging it up would be useful, because so much work goes in that initial stage. Once you've done the white paper, the hardest part's done, and then slicing, dicing that content into other deliverables is not as hard. Yeah, I can imagine.
Right.
How much sort of video are you asked to do, Ros? Like, is that, I know we all turn to YouTube for instructional videos and that sort of thing, and it really is a growing area. We're told that over and over. Does that come much into what you do?
Yeah, like, are you thinking in terms of scripts?
Video scripts, or so do you have video skills in the sense that you could supply video with your stories, or not really?
Yeah, I've got to say, I haven't really thought about it. I've came from a bit of a multimedia background. I did sound design at uni and a bit of filmmaking a long, long time ago.
So you could supply reels. You could charge big bucks for tech reels.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it. It's that thing, isn't it? You're so busy doing what you're doing. I've written some scripts.
I've been doing a lot more scripts, and I'm finding, well, often videographers do the actual videos. I often do the sort of, I guess, almost storyboarding and the script writing, which is a whole area. And that's the same as what you're doing. I'm doing it with subject matter experts. I do the brochure, and it's an extension of that work too. So it's like a different deliverable.
Yeah, it would probably be another one of those add-ons that people could look into, and kind of add that in as their, it's their particular, unique selling point.
Yeah. You're pretty active in the freelance community. I know you're on Rachel's list and we chat a bit. So do you see some challenges that you're seeing in your sort of freelance career that other people are, or do you think tech is different?
I think on the editorial side, it's challenging. There's been a whole lot of closures this year of gaming titles and some tech titles, and quite a lot of people have been laid off. One outlet that I work for has sort of got a budget freeze for this year. So I've had one of my stories cut, and there's a sort of question mark over what will happen next year for them. And that was sort of 2 stories a month. So,
that's hard.
yeah, so it's sort of, I know it's a difficult time because inflation, budgets are sort of shrinking. I think there's just a lot of noise as well of just general uncertainty, ChatGPT. I mean, you sort of name it, what's happening with the latest Google sort of algorithm. Is everyone going to video, for example? Is it TikTok? Is it YouTube? There's a lot, I think, that's coming at those marketers that they're trying to figure out what's going to work and what's going to resonate and where to put their budget. And that's, I guess, having that spread, I've been pretty sort of insulated this year from that. I've had the client work still coming along, and I've had a couple of inquiries lately, and so it had been pretty quiet on that inquiry front. Like, as I said, a couple of years ago, I mean, I think we all were. You just, every time you looked in LinkedIn, there was someone getting in touch about something or an email coming in, and that's definitely gone a lot quieter. But I think tech, there has been a lot of sort of budget cuts and so on in the US. And I think that affects obviously us here, whether it's writing for that company or whether it's just companies here that are following that lead, or they're just sort of pulling down the shutters a little bit to sort of wait and see what happens, what next year looks like. And everyone, I think, is sort of holding their breath a little bit. I was talking to another sort of tech writer in the US who's sort of like me, like Jennifer, and things are quiet on her front, and she's a very experienced writer, and she's sort of waiting to see what next year looks like as well.
You just mentioned ChatGPT. How are you using AI if you are using it?
Look, sometimes I use it like an agony aunt.
Nice.
I'm like, maybe that's what because I'm alone. So I'm like, well, maybe I should ask it what it thinks. I've been thinking about launching a kind of digital dispatches sort of newsletter website sort of thing. So I've been kind of brainstorming ideas and then just saying, I'm stuck, I have no idea what to do, and see what it says. I don't take its advice necessarily, but it saves the half an hour that I, harangue my husband and put it all to him. Sometimes I just ask for an intro or something, like a lead or something, and I can never use it verbatim, but I might just pull out like a phrase or something. And it's sort of like, look, yeah, I could do that, but I'm just at full capacity because I've just written the story, and then I've written the headline, and then I've got the links, and I've checked the data and all of that, and I just need a little helping hand. Occasionally I put things in and I'll ask it for a bit of editing advice. And again, I worked as a sub-editor, and sort of that means you're an editor as well. So I don't come at it. I don't sort of fall down and go, oh, okay, I have to take all of these things on board. I just look, I'm looking to see whether can it widen my kind of field of view. So if I've come at something in my particular way, does it suggest something that maybe I hadn't thought of? And so is that actually make me a bit better so I can think of another angle or just a slightly different way of looking at something, or just a suggestion on maybe improving the linkage between certain ideas or paragraphs, or just tightening up a couple of things. But it's in no way something that it would spit out something better than what I would do.
Yeah.
I guess it'd be tricky because you're often reporting on sort of leading edge technology that's not around. So there's not even a lot that Chat GPT can sort of pull from the internet on that, can it? Because it's new stuff.
Yeah, and it just makes stuff up, as we know, like makes up links and it makes up reports where you're like, oh, God, that sounds great. It's like, yeah, it's because it doesn't exist. It's like it wanted you to.
Oh, there's a report on this. How fantastic.
Absolutely perfect report that's going to just back in exactly what you wanted to say. And it's like, no, you need to go and do the work yourself and find that and then think about what is the point. And if that isn't what you said, then you have to change what you said because it doesn't back that up.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely sometimes you feel like it's just got a real sense of humor. But I did
not always a nice sense of humor either.
No. I did a really interesting workshop recently on AI with Amy Williamson, who's a copywriter whose company is called Damn Right. And she's gone way into the AI rabbit hole. And that was just fascinating. It's like really kind of high level grunt work to do with copywriting and voice of customer and scraping competitor research and all of that. But that just blew my mind because it was stuff I hadn't considered like using it for, because I'm very much like, I don't want to use it for writing. I just don't want my brain to get too lazy. But I love the idea of using it for all the grunt work stuff.
Yeah, there's a few people that have done that. There's a couple of things that I sign up to that I sort of scan a bit, on prompts and this and that. And I think sometimes I think it takes longer to, if I've got to write an essay in order to give it instructions for what I want, then I may as well have just written the thing.
Yeah. Yes.
And I think there are those people who are taking the time to drill down and figure out how can it offer us something with the right inputs and so on that may help us with having to write the SEO and the meta description and the blah blah. And it's like, that's not cheating. It's just it's just giving you a helping hand because that stuff's all new. Once upon a time we didn't have to write that as writers, but now we do. So maybe it's okay to have a little helping hand for that.
Well, actually, Susan Rioch just did in her newsletter, because she has the paid version of ChatGPT, and she would upload the images and then ask ChatGPT to write the alt text for it. And I thought, that is genius. Like, I wouldn't have thought to do that. And it is such a grind to do all the alt text, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I asked her, are you doing this with the free version? And she said, no, you need the paid to upload the image and all of that sort of stuff. So I'm toying with the idea of getting the paid version, but I'm not there yet.
You were talking a bit about tools. Are there some good tech tips and digital tools you use in your writing? Any that you'd be lost without?
The main one's probably Trello.
I love Trello. I use that all the time.
I'd use that in the last job. And I think it's coming from that magazine background that I like an editorial calendar. I like a kind of editorial board, and I like to see things moving along. And I very much like write extra things on the list just so I can cross them off, that I'd feel good that I've done them.
Yeah.
So, I have that. And that way I can obviously, every editorial story or project is a card, it goes on whichever section it needs to be on. I can add in dates, I can link to things, I can put notes in it, and then I can move it along. Once it gets to the editing section, I usually feel happier about that. And then I've got other things. So when I see things, I can collect things into different topics, whether it's a blog idea or just something that I'm like, oh, I should do a digital course or something. I'll just stick that on that card, or sometimes it's story ideas or all sorts of different things. That's really the main one.
Amazing.
That is interesting. I mean, yeah, actually, I use it quite differently. And I think that most people use it the way you do, because I actually have a board for each client and then do that. But I actually think the idea of moving them through a process makes more sense. Yeah, I'm going to rethink that.
Yes. Wow. This has been very interesting, Ros. You're making me think differently about tech, because I did start doing writing tech right at the beginning of my career. I even tested the very first drag and dictate and all that.
Oh, right.
Yeah, years and years ago. But it's interesting to consider tech, like maybe not the really high level tech, but the consumer stuff that might be, doable. I think that's definitely, kind of lateral thinking about the niche that you're already in that people could consider for sure.
I call it sort of digital lifestyle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
nice. And I
nice.
think there's a lot that comes under that banner that we could apply ourselves to without worrying about numbers and bits and bobs and all of that kind of thing that is just irrelevant in a way to us.
Mainframe architecture.
Yes.
Yes. You know what's really interesting too, Ros, is that I feel like I know you quite well, but I've never had a really good discussion about what you do day to day. I think this is so interesting. I think it's a good reason to have more conversations with other writers about exactly what they do, because I think it's given me a real understanding of your work, and it's been really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming on.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Tell us a little bit about where our listeners can find you.
And when your newsletter is starting. That's a joke. I'm not trying to pressure you.
That's the January job. I'm already starting a January list of things, and that's on there, but I've just got to come up with a name. Because you come up with a name and then you Google it and you're like, oh, yeah.
I've come up with a name for my newsletter, and actually a designer is designing a little header thing for my newsletter at the moment. Lynne, you're going to absolutely hate the name, but I really like it.
You can tell us off air.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Okay. Where can we find out about you?
You can find me on my website, which is rosalynpage.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn, which is the usual LinkedIn/Rosalyn Page.
Fabulous.
And I'll put links in the show notes to all of that. And also, Ros did a great piece, which is a bit of a deep dive into some different aspects of tech writing that she's got on a website. And I'll put a link to that because I think it really goes into it in great detail. And it's really interesting.
It definitely does. It'll get the wheels turning. Well, thank you, Ros, so much for being our guest this week. That brings us to the end of the show. But thanks to you, if you are out there listening, and if you found this episode useful and valuable, please leave us a rating and review on the platform where you find your podcast.
Yep, thanks. And we'll be back next week. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group, or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.